Welcome back to Living the American Dream, a year abroad, where we dive deep into my student exchange experience in South Dakota. In today's episode, we are going to explore something that I deem as very important: the culture, challenges, and resilience of Native communities in the US, or more specifically in South Dakota. So, let's get started right away. Before we start to talk about the indigenous people in South Dakota, I first want to give you some basic knowledge so you have an overview of what's going on in the US and why I think it's important to talk about the natives. Okay, so the United States is home to a lot of different tribes of indigenous people, each with their own language, tradition, and history. Many of those tribes live in reservations. Those are villages or smaller towns, creating small communities. The core values of these communities often include things like respect, compassion, prayer, honesty, generosity, humility, and wisdom. These principles have been passed down through generations and are continuing to be an important part of their life. Now, here's the problem. Their spirituality and traditions often clash with modernity. The natives and not natives, well, let's just say, do not get along very well. They are often treated unfairly, facing systemic neglect and poverty, especially on the reservations. In South Dakota, almost everyone living on reservations is experiencing poverty, and discrimination is thriving. Now, you might be asking why. And to keep it short, when Europeans began arriving in the US, they didn't treat the native population very well. Many indigenous people were enslaved, killed, or displaced. Over the centuries, through wars, broken treaties, and forced removals, they have lost most of their land and resources. Today, there are still deep scars from that history. Many native communities deal with discrimination, poverty, and struggles, as I said before. There are also stereotypes and tensions, though not every native person hates white people, and not every white person holds negative views about indigenous people. But the effects of colonization are still very present, and I honestly never knew about this before coming to the US. You know, I remember being a kid and dressing up as an Indian or, Native American, not knowing anything, and I didn't even know that they were oppressed like that. To be honest, as a kid I didn't even know that they still existed. However, going to the US really opened my eyes, and I made some Native friends and got to hear a ton of opinions about this topic, and can say for sure that the discrimination and racism still is very much present, and even in my daily life I could see racism take place. So that's why we're here today, and I'm informing you about this, because I want to open your eyes as well and show you that Native Americans are still alive today. Okay, so now that you have some basic knowledge about the Native Americans, let me introduce you to the Sioux tribes of South Dakota. The Sioux tribes hold Mother Nature and animals in high regard. Especially the buffalo is very important to them, simply because back then when they used to really go hunting, they lived off of them. They were following wherever the buffaloes were going and were using the entire body of it to survive. The buffalo provided the Sioux with basically everything they needed, like meat, fur, and materials for tools. Sadly, when the Transcontinental Railroad was built in the 19th century, a lot of hunters were hunting buffalo, but instead of actually hunting them, they just shot them all dead, leaving behind massive piles of dead buffalo and reducing their number from a few million to just a few thousand. This also troubled the natives and led to them losing a lot of resources as well as land. Even though the tribes were weakened a lot, South Dakota is still home to 9 federally recognized tribes. These include the Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota people, who also speak their respective language. And before you ask, yes, most of them speak English as well, at least every single one I met. Oh, and just a side note, Pine Ridge Reservation, often referred to as the poorest place in the US, is also located near Rapid City. Okay, now let's talk about something more positive. Traditional practices still remain present despite all difficulties. Dances like the powwow and the Sundance are popular, and there were even some events in Rapid City where they were performed by Native Americans. Witnessing these traditions firsthand was really moving, especially seeing how they preserved their heritage despite all the odds. As I said before, living in South Dakota gave me the opportunity to witness a lot of things with my own eyes. These moments sadly aren't always positive. One day I came to school and there was a huge tumult going on. Something had happened the night before at a bar downtown. A woman cut off the hair of a native man. Now is a good time that I tell you that hair holds a significant spiritual importance for many indigenous people, so this was extremely offensive. Another incident involved Dakota time, a term that someone of higher status in a school district used to stereotype natives as being late and lazy. The person who used that term was later suspended for just a month, I think, but to be honest, I think she should have been punished way more. And so did many people in the native community, which led to some really heated debates. But I don't just want to talk about negative moments. Let me tell you something that I found very interesting. While attending the graduation ceremony in Rapid City, a representative of the indigenous people sang a song in their native language. That was super interesting to listen to, since I hadn't heard anybody talk in their native language before. So, as I was saying earlier, the struggles of indigenous communities are not confined to South Dakota. Across the US, natives face challenges tied to discrimination and racism. And if you're interested in learning more, I recommend watching Aaron Huey's TED Talk titled America's Native Prisoners of War. It sheds light on the challenges natives face and their enduring strength. Now, before wrapping up this episode, I want to say that it's important to see both sides. Yes, the natives get discriminated against, and that is absolutely wrong. However, from what I have seen, the hate from natives against white Americans is also rooted extremely deeply and should also be talked about. This is not just about the natives getting treated fairly, it's about everyone getting treated fairly. And with that, we've reached the end of our 4th episode. We talked about the native people of the US and what challenges they have to face. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for tuning in to Living the American Dream, a Year Abroad. I'll see you next time when we'll talk about nature and climate.